The jungle was alive, yet something about it felt off. Birds called from the treetops, insects buzzed near mossy trunks, but beneath the usual sounds of nature, there was something else, a faint, trembling cry, hidden within the leaves. Deep in the thicket, where sunlight barely reached, a pair of eyes blinked slowly, dull from exhaustion. A German shepherd lay in the dirt, his paws cruelly tied with frayed rope, the fur around his ankles soaked with blood and mud. He was breathing, barely, his chest rising in painful jerks. Each whimper that escaped his mouth was filled with pain, fear, and a fading hope for rescue. He had been left here, abandoned by someone without a soul. The jungle had swallowed his voice for days, but now the cry escaped the canopy. He didn't know it yet, but help, unlike anything he expected, was about to come, in the smallest form imaginable. Just beyond the edges of the jungle, where the trees met open fields, lay a small village, peaceful, untouched by chaos. In the backyard of a worn brick house, a toddler named Ion sat on the ground, playing with pebbles and dirt. His giggles rose with each toss, filling the air with pure innocence. His grandmother watched from the porch, distracted, sorting beans into a basket. Then it happened, Ion froze. His tiny head turned toward the trees. A sound, soft, almost lost in the wind, had caught his attention. A baby's curiosity knows no bounds. Without hesitation, Ion stood up and waddled toward the trees, giggling as leaves crunched under his bare feet. The cries grew louder with each step. He didn't know what it was, only that something was calling. Behind him, the house remained silent. Unaware of what waited in the shadows, the baby entered the jungle, drawn by a voice only he could hear. The jungle closed in around him, towering branches forming a ceiling of green above Ion's tiny head. Shafts of sunlight slipped through, casting shifting patterns on the muddy floor. The cries grew louder now, close, urgent. Ion stumbled over a root, caught himself, then waddled forward again. And then, he saw it. Nestled between two thick tree roots was a large, trembling dog. The German shepherd's eyes locked onto Ion's, filled with pain and fear, but also something else, a flicker of recognition. Ion tilted his head, stared, then stepped closer. His tiny hands reached out, fingers twitching with curiosity. He didn't flinch, didn't cry. The dog, though wounded and bound, didn't growl. Something passed between them, an unspoken understanding. Ion dropped to his knees beside him, babbling softly. The dog didn't move, but his eyes followed the child's every motion. In the silence of the jungle, a bond had just been formed, one deeper than words could explain. Ion sat down beside the injured German shepherd, his little hand brushing against the dog's dirty fur. The dog winced slightly but didn't pull away. Ion's face was full of wonder, not fear. His fingers fumbled toward the rope tied tightly around the dog's front paws. It was rough and knotted, stained with dried blood. Clumsily, he tugged at it, muttering nonsense in a soft, soothing voice only toddlers know. The dog let out a low, exhausted whimper, but stayed still. His tail twitched slightly. Ion kept working, his tiny hands persistent. He had no idea what pain meant, what suffering was. He only saw a friend in need. Every now and then, he paused to pat the dog's side or smile into his face. The dog blinked, breathing heavily, as if the baby's presence was medicine itself. In that quiet corner of the world, two souls found each other, and something incredible was about to unfold. Suddenly, the jungle shifted. Leaves rustled with unnatural rhythm, and the birds above fell silent. Ion's hands stopped moving. The dog lifted his head slightly, ears twitching. Something was coming. From the underbrush, a pair of glowing eyes appeared, watching, waiting. A small, wild fox stepped forward, teeth bared slightly. Though not large, it sensed weakness, drawn by the smell of blood and vulnerability. The dog growled, low and warning, but he was too weak to rise. Ion turned to the noise, staring at the fox with wide, curious eyes. He didn't understand danger, but he could feel tension. Instinctively, the baby stood in front of the dog, tiny arms outstretched as if to protect him. "No!" he shouted in his toddler voice, a blend of courage and confusion. The fox crept closer. The air turned thick, the jungle holding its breath. It was a standoff, between an injured protector, a fearless child, and a predator waiting to strike. In that moment of breathless silence, The German shepherd summoned every ounce of strength left in his battered body. His ears shot up, and with one final surge of will, he let out a thunderous bark, loud, raw, defiant. It tore through the jungle like a shot, echoing off the trees. The fox jerked back, startled. Another bark followed, then another. Despite the ropes, despite the pain, the dog stood slightly, growling fiercely. The fox, sensing the fight in its prey, gave a final snarl and vanished into the undergrowth. Ion clapped, giggling, oblivious to the danger that had just passed. To him, it was a fun sound, a big dog making noise. But to the dog, it was everything. It was defense, survival, and protection. He licked Ion's cheek, his body shaking, tail twitching slightly. The threat was gone, for now. In a way only animals know, the dog had accepted the child as his own. Back at the village, panic had erupted. Ion's mother screamed his name, running through the yard with wild eyes. The grandmother stammered, clutching her chest. Neighbors gathered quickly, a search party forming within minutes. Flashlights were grabbed, sticks for clearing brush, and names echoed through the trees. Ion! Ion! The forest began to answer back, not with words, but whispers, shadows, and uncertainty. Meanwhile, deep inside, Ion sat beside the dog, humming softly, pressing leaves onto the dog's wounds like bandages. The German shepherd, though weak, nuzzled close, breathing in the baby's scent like it was lifeline. But the sun was dipping low, and the jungle never stayed kind for long. Ion stood up, beginning to wander deeper, his curiosity endless. The dog, now desperate, tried to follow, dragging his tied paws painfully behind him. He barked again, louder this time. The call pierced the jungle. Somewhere, a searcher froze and turned. Someone had finally heard them. Clouds had thickened above the jungle, and soon, fat drops of rain began to fall. The forest grew darker, slick with mud and leaves. Ion slipped, landing with a soft cry. The dog barked again, louder than before, despite the pain in his bound legs. His bark echoed, until, finally, crashing footsteps approached. A man's voice shouted, "He's here! I hear barking!" Seconds later, villagers emerged through the foliage, eyes wide. What they saw stopped them in their tracks. Ion sitting beside an injured German shepherd, both drenched, the baby trying to shield the dog with his tiny body. The men rushed forward. One scooped up Ion, holding him close, while the others surrounded the dog. "Who did this?" someone whispered. They began cutting the ropes gently, murmuring curses at the cruelty. The dog didn't fight. He simply stared up at Ion. The child smiled back, rain dripping from his nose. The storm outside couldn't match the storm inside their hearts. As the villagers brought the dog and baby back through the winding trails, an older man gasped, pointing. "That's Raja," he said, his voice trembling. "That's my neighbor's dog. He went missing months ago." People crowded around, piecing the story together. The neighbor had moved away in a rush, abandoning everything, including his loyal dog. No one had seen Raja since, until now. The wounds told the rest, tied, dumped, and left to die. The cruelty of it sent chills through everyone. But even more powerful was what had happened since. "This dog saved our baby," someone said. "And the baby saved him." Ion, now dry and warm in his mother's arms, kept pointing toward Raja, babbling and smiling. Raja lay on a blanket nearby, finally resting, tail wagging weakly. The villagers were silent, shaken by what they had witnessed. The jungle had nearly buried this story forever. But fate, and a baby's heart, had other plans. Weeks passed, and Raja, no longer a nameless stray, healed slowly in Ion's home. The once broken paws were bandaged with care, and his fur began to shine again. Wherever Ion crawled, Raja was right beside him, like a shadow with a heartbeat. The villagers often stopped by just to see them, this unlikely pair whose story had become a legend overnight. Ion's mother would smile softly, watching the two play in the yard. Sometimes, Raja would lay beside the boy as he napped, never letting his eyes drift from the door. What started as a tragedy had become a bond that nothing could break. The baby had seen past the wounds, and the dog had seen the purity in that tiny soul. No one would ever forget the day they found each other. In the heart of a jungle meant to take life, something far greater had been found: loyalty, trust, and a friendship that saved them both.